When it comes to DanDaDan, I really loved season 1. So going to see the Evil Eye movie, which is really just the first 3 episodes of DanDaDan season 2, I was a bit nervous. I mean, DanDaDan took us to such great heights, so how does Evil Eye compare to season 1 of DanDaDan? Welcome back, everyone. We're going to discuss my thoughts on the first 3 episodes of DanDaDan season 2, also known as the Evil Eye movie, the Evil Eye arc, and I cannot wait to get into this with you because I've been sitting on this for a little bit, but finally I have gathered my thoughts and I'm ready to discuss. Heads up, spoiler warnings in effect for the first 3 episodes, so if you haven't watched those yet, if you haven't seen the movie, just a heads up, we will be talking about what happens in those. So let's start off with the setting. So I think something that I really like about where season 2 starts is we are in a very different location. We ended off season 1 sort of going to this mountain village where there's these hot springs, and it's just a very different vibe from where the rest of the show is set, from our kind of home base. So being in a different place, being in a different kind of village or town, I liked because it's a bit unsettling, and I also feel like it's really beautiful though. So there's a bit of a creepy but also beauty to the look of where we're at. It gives me a little bit of the feeling of the beginning of Spirited Away, you know, when you're going to the theme park, but there's no one there. It's just eerie, and I love the design. I think it's great. I love that it's different. Another highlight for me from these first 3 episodes that I think everyone's going to be wanting to hear about is the fighting. I think the fighting is so good, and this is paramount because when it comes to fighting, especially how it's connected to the animation in the show in season 1, there were some pretty big highs, and so I think people are coming to DanDaDan expecting that level of quality, and guess what? It does not slip. In particular, a highlight for me was actually the Keto family, which are some sort of lower level of villains that we have to deal with in this arc, and we saw at the end of season 1. They are also the gators that Momo encounters at the end of season 1, which ended on such a cliffhanger, and we had to wait so long. I'm so glad that that cliffhanger at least was resolved, and I get to know that Momo's okay, because I was really worried about Momo, guys. But Momo is okay. She makes it through the gators with flying colors. Thank goodness we have, of course, Turbo Granny there, who... Love Turbo Granny. She is one of my favorite characters in the entire anime so far. I love that she gets to be here with us in this arc, and I loved all of the banter that she provides and just her dry wit, her sarcasm. It's always so fun. But also she's powerful, so she's a great ally to have for this arc, even though they really raised the stakes with this arc. Let's talk about that. One of the most powerful things I think about the Evil Eye arc is the themes that we explore in it. There is this idea of despair, of desolation, and we're really dealing with themes of suicide. When it comes to that kind of theme where you feel this compulsion to take your own life, I think it's really dark, it's really heavy, and it's very interesting in the sense that it's also so closely attached to someone like Jiji, who's a very upbeat, a very happy, a very smiley character. And at times, it tends to be those people that you really, I think, need to watch out for the most in life, who deal the most with feelings of depression. Not that that's really what Jiji is going through explicitly in this arc, but more just the closeness of that connection with Jiji's attachment to Evil Eye that I think is interesting that we get to explore in that lens, because it does tie to a lot of real world stuff that you see. People that are the happiest also tend to be the most sad and the most empty inside. It's like a mask that we put on to cover up those feelings. And I say that as someone that's experienced and lived with depression for on and off for years, you know? I think this is also a theme that I find to be particularly terrifying in terms of raising the stakes, because Jiji is actually the character who, because he has this connection to Evil Eye, can avoid the feelings of wanting to cause harm to himself, and instead has to watch as everyone around him gets sort of stuck in this trance where they want to do harm to themselves. So the people that he loves are the most at risk, and he is almost powerless to really stop them. He's putting himself in harm's way just to protect these people, and I think there's something really terrifying about that. If you know me, if you've been around this channel for any amount of time, you probably know that one of my greatest fears is the fear of possession. I find that to be one of the most terrifying themes in horror, and I think this story really plays with that idea as well. This idea of being compelled to do harm to yourself and unable to stop yourself. And even worse, if you're the person that's around other people that feel that way and you're powerless to stop them. That's even scarier to me. And that feeling of powerlessness is also directly connected to our real antagonist, which is something else that I loved about this arc, is the idea that you think going in that you know who the antagonist is. I think we all expected Evil Eye was going to be, you know, the bad guy here, because that's the whole reason that we went here, was to explore Jiji's house, to find out what this spirit wants, and this spirit has been haunting him. Possibly caused some harm to his family, which we find out more about in this, and it gets really dark, to be honest with you, because once again, it's that idea of not being able to stop people from causing harm, and that's exactly what happened to Jiji's parents, who are now in critical care. It's horrifying. So you would think that Evil Eye is going to be this big villain, but twist, it's actually the Great Snake, who we later find out is also the Mongolian Deathworm, that's our real antagonist here, with Evil Eye more taking a role of a deuteragonist who is sometimes working with our heroes, but also is sometimes working against them as well. A very complex character. I just love the approach to yokai here. But before we get into all of that, because I do want to talk about Evil Eye more, I just want to say the other thing that I love about the Mongolian Deathworm is how we solve that problem, how it's attached to Jiji, and just how it comes from something in nature that happens. There's so many layers. There's so many layers to DanDaDan, and that's what I really love about it. Basically, what it is, I won't say the actual what the concept is called, because I've used my one use of this word in the video already. Basically, what it is when earthworms, when it rains, they get soaked with water, and it gets a little bit more challenging for them to breathe. They can survive in the water, but eventually they become a little bit suffocated. They got to come up for air. And when they do that, unfortunately, if they stay out too long, if they're on a sidewalk, it gets hot, the rain stops, and they dry out. And so, in a way, it's like they've taken their own lives. Even though earthworms aren't actually trying to do this, it just happens. It's an accident. It's just life. Just like how sometimes depression can just be a part of life, honestly. And so the fact that this is something that is directly tied to earthworms in the real world, in nature, and that is also connected to this great sort of demonic entity that lives in the earth, that is a giant worm, basically, that can make you want to, you know, cause harm to yourself. It's all connected beautifully. Those themes are all there, and there's just so many layers to them to explore. But let's get into Evil Eye. So if Evil Eye isn't really the big bad, what is Evil Eye doing in this? What I love about Evil Eye is actually the complexity that we approach this character with. I love how we approach yokai in DanDaDan, because it's not just about this idea of these spirits like being evil, being malicious. They might do malicious things, but we find out a lot of the times through their tragic backstories that there's just a lot more to them. And the reason that they're doing what they're doing is because they are the embodiment of that last moment of trauma that they experienced, and that manifests in a way that feels malicious, but is actually coming usually from a place of some kind of injustice. And so with Evil Eye, we find out about the spirit of this young being who was basically sacrificed in the name of, you know, the Mongolian Deathworm to prevent a volcano from erupting in this town. So that's the whole idea. That's the history of everything that's been going on here. The Keto family is also tied to it. Once again, everything is just tied so seamlessly, and I freaking love it. Good storytelling. Good storytelling. No notes there. So that idea of where the Evil Eye comes from, you're like, wow, that's really messed up. But at the same time, because they are this kind of spirit of vengeance, there is a malicious nature to them, and they do want to cause harm to others because they themselves have experienced what that's like. But also, in a way, when they attach themselves to you, they kind of protect you from the effects of the Mongolian Deathworm, which is what we see with Jiji. So just a lot of layers, but also possession, horrifying. Evil Eye possessing Jiji, terrifying. Just a terrifying concept. I gotta say, I also love the color choice for Evil Eye. Originally, we find out at an interview that happened, that was screened sort of after the first 3 episodes, they did a kind of Q&A with the people that are bringing us DanDaDan, and they were talking about this idea of initially kind of wanting to do Evil Eye as white, and it was the person that actually brought us the original opening title sequence who came up with the idea of Evil Eye being purple in terms of the color themes that we get here. And I love it because I love the clash of the red with the purple. They're just two colors that sometimes kind of work together, but also are really different from each other. But I just love how they kind of work in opposition, but can also sometimes be a bit complementary. There's a lot to love there. And that fight scene between the two of them is epic, I will just say. Like, hold your horses because it goes for a while. And the other thing that I really love here is the nuance that we get with Jiji. I think the Evil Eye arc is also a bit of a character study more on Jiji than anyone else. And what we really get to examine here is just how nuanced of a character he is. Yeah, he's super smiley, but there is this really dark sadness kind of attached to the character through his connection to Evil Eye. And the other thing is that while he is a big jock and kind of a big goofball, we also learn the reason why a lot of people say that he's a super smart guy. And it's not just like a funny joke. I thought in season 1, maybe we were just kind of joking about that, but no, he's super intelligent. So I love that there's all these layers to who Jiji is. He isn't just an archetype. He isn't just a stereotype. There's a lot more to him than meets the eye. That's one of my favorite things about the show in general. I think it's really easy with DanDaDan, especially if you just watch the first episode of season 1, to make judgments on what this show is about. But the more that you dive into it, the more you see all of the layers and how deep the characters are. And it is a show that I think if you stick with it, there's a lot there for you to enjoy and explore. And the sound design in general in this arc I thought was perfect. Music and sound are still at the level of season 1 in terms of the quality, even though we have a little bit of a different sound going into season 2. And speaking of season 2, I am so eager to watch the rest of it, because while season 1 ended with this big cliffhanger with Momo, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to wait so long for season 2. Then we got the movie, and I was like, finally I can get to the answer, I can have closure. And then you know what they did to me at the end of these 3 episodes? They gave me an even greater cliffhanger where now everyone's in danger. Oh no. Because the Mongolian death worm is now gone, potentially. We don't actually know if that's exactly why, but now our volcano is erupting. Is it because the Great Snake is gone? Is it just a coincidence? I don't know, but it's happening. So now we got to deal with it. I love how DanDaDan always puts me in these situations where I don't think there's any way out. The stakes just feel so real here, and I'm so worried for everybody. And now I have to wait even longer because season 2 is going to be starting soon, but then I'm going to have to wait 3 weeks, right? Because each episode will be a weekly release before I get caught up to where the end of the movie was, those first 3 episodes for episode 4. So get ready to live the cliffhanger life with me once you catch up. Or, you know, if you've already seen this, then let's hold hands in the comments and hope that time passes fast, because I need to know what happens next. I needed to know when this movie ended, and yet I'm still waiting. But the wait will be over soon. So overall, I would say the first 3 episodes of DanDaDan, our start to DanDaDan, I mean, I think this is a 5 out of 5 for me. I'm trying to think of like what I would improve, if anything, but there's really no notes that I have. I think everything was approached really well. I like all of the layers here, the nuances to the characters. The animation is great. The set design is great for this. Just the music is fantastic. There wasn't anything that I feel like it was missing from it. And so I just can't wait to see where we go next. My only problem is that the cliffhangers are killing me. I'm dying over here. I might need to read the manga just to find out what happens. That's how I might need to do it. Guys, should I read the manga? Tell me in the comments. That's all I have for this one. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments below. Let me know if you love it, if you hate it, if you haven't seen it, and you just wanted everything to be spoiled for you. Let me know how that's going for you in the comments. I'll see you down there, and until next time, friends, as always, stay nerdy. Bye! And if you like when I talk about anime, if you missed some of my DanDaDan stuff, check it out here.